Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. And let's talk about leader of the Green Party, Zack Polanski.
Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby.
If you need me, call me, no matter where you are, no matter how far.
Don't worry, baby.
Well, it seems he's tried to get famous many times, including making his own movie, which I doubt you've ever seen any clips of ever before. A movie about people drinking milk and vomiting.
Look at this. It's a Van Damme spoof.
Well, I'm not going to show you the vomiting clips because obviously, it's a Sunday evening. You don't need to see that. But vomiting is something I regularly feel the need to do after a Green Party press conference, I have to admit. Polanski was also a Harley Street hypnotist, but now at least he's finally got what he wanted as a Z-list celebrity status as the leader of the wacky Green Party that ironically doesn't seem to talk about green issues very often anymore. Of course, his past doesn't really matter. He is who he is today, and it's really no no reflection of who he is as a party leader. But in more recent news, particularly today, Zack Polanski has said he wants rent controls.
How would you actually make it work then? Because as you say, there's lots of places. If you look in the Netherlands, they've had severe rental shortages, which is often said to be as a result of controls on rent. Sweden's got extremely long waiting lists for rental properties, some of as long as 10 years, and there's been an increase in black market rental there. So what model are you looking at?
Well, the first thing is I think the mayors need to be given the powers for rent controls. Now, I sit as an elected member of the London Assembly, and Sadiq Khan, as London mayor, was calling for rent controls. But he said when we had a Labour government and a Labour mayor, that would be the difference this country needed. I don't know if people have noticed there hasn't been much difference, and where there has, things have got worse.
That's not an answer, is it? That is a deflection. And it's not surprising why he can't answer why rent controls haven't worked anywhere, because there aren't any cities where it has worked. They've actually just made people poorer and actually reduced the amount of rents available for people. He's also said he wants to legalise all drugs and alcohol, partly because it's a little bit racist.
Well, the Prime Minister of this country, by the way, made a joke about taking drugs in university. And what we see is this is very racialised. In fact, very often it is young black people who are stopped and searched in the street, particularly in London, 8 times more likely than their white peers, despite the fact there is no evidence they're any more likely to be holding or taking drugs. I've actually never taken a drug in my life or even drunk alcohol, but I still don't sit here as the fun police. I very clearly believe people should be able to do what they want to do. It just wasn't for me.
Definitely argue he's not the fun police, that's for sure. So he wants to legalise drugs because they're a little bit racist, despite the fact he says that there is no connecting evidence. There is. Drug convictions for minority ethnic people does show per capita that they are more likely to be convicted for such crimes. At least this is all consistent, as he's also very happy to plough children with puberty blocker drugs, which will inevitably destroy many of their lives, but he won't even touch alcohol. The man. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. I guess some would argue that a whole generation of kids growing up as crack addicts, questioning whether their gender would help the Green Party's vote, perhaps. As he stands here in this next clip at Heaven in a gay club in central London, he thinks the real threat isn't people coming over in dinghies, but people flying in private jets. Yeah, another clip, he does go on to state that obviously people who are flying in private jets are the problem. I'm not sure the family of Rhiannon White would agree with Zack Polanski on that matter. Zack also says that we should leave NATO because of Donald Trump. Yes, that's right. Leave NATO while we're at war with Russia and China is basically trying to infiltrate our country, and while we've shared military facilities with the USA. So what's his solution?
Laughing at the idea that Vladimir Putin is going to give up his nuclear weapons because somebody asks him to.
Well, you could have laughed at the point of Nelson Mandela negotiating with the ANC, or we could have laughed at the Irish during the Troubles.
You're not sincerely making the comparison. Come on.
I am making the comparison. I think it's always impossible until it's done.
Come on. Give me a break. The bloke thinks he's going to be the next Nelson Mandela to take on Putin and ask very politely for Vladimir Putin to disarm his nukes.
This interruption is brought to you by ExpressVPN and their New Year deal. New Year, new VPN, and a huge saving of up to 80% if you act now. You're busy planning how to get in shape, but the hackers are planning how to get into your accounts. ExpressVPN locks down your connection so you can start the year protecting your data. This offer ends on the 7th of January, so scan the QR code or click the link in the description now.
All right, let's get the thoughts of my panel tonight. And joining me is environmental lawyer Paul Poulsland, indeed, and my panel, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, former Conservative MP Anna Firth, former Special Labour Advisor and columnist Paul Richards. Adam, I'll first of all start with you. Listen, I want to take people seriously in politics. Zack Polanski has at least been consistent on his message with drugs. I think the puberty blocker stuff is completely abhorrent. Disgusting. It's going to destroy children's lives, but it is consistent with his message of wanting to legalise drugs. Is there a cohort of British people that would support this?
I'm not going to hold back here, Alex. Zack Polanski is a danger to this country. Can honestly anyone picture him as our Prime Minister? For me, he's a complete pillock. He thinks he can end wars by asking leaders not to have wars. He wants men in wigs in women's toilets. He wants crack cocaine and heroin to be legalised. What else is there? He wants more asylum seekers, considering the crimes that we're seeing and the expense that we're all having to pay our taxes because of more immigration in this country. He would bankrupt this country within 3 months. And the scary thing is that a lot of 16 to 24-year-olds are falling for this chancer. He just wants fame. You can see it in all the videos that he does. I can see it being Reform versus Greens, and that is a scary prospect for this country.
Paul, new Paul, hello, welcome to the show. Not Paul Richards on my... There's two Pauls here tonight. Paul, you're a Green Party member, if I'm correct in stating that. Zack today has mentioned he wants rent controls. Rent controls have failed in almost every single place they have ever been proposed. They drive people into poverty. They reduce the rent supply. So why would rent controls be a positive thing for Britain?
You just asked the other panel member who was against Zack to do a generalised rant against Zack, which was pretty, if I'm honest, not very well cited. I mean, the idea that he's going to bankrupt this country in 3 months, have you got any evidence for that whatsoever, or is it just something you just pulled out of your head just there?
He's clearly clueless. He was asked about economic numbers. He couldn't answer. Right. The man, I know more about politics and economics than this guy, and I'm a publican. So anyone that thinks they can vote him in as Prime Minister is voting for this country to be bankrupt.
The fact that we are in this studio having this discussion now is a testament to Zack's success. Did you have this discussion for Adrian Ramsey, our last leader? No, you didn't, because you didn't see him as a threat. Point. You didn't see him as a threat, and the fact is that Zack is giving very popular policies that a lot of people in this country want and that they are going to vote for, and that is why we are now in many opinion polls coming up in line with Labour as the opposition to reform. Indeed, in my seat, where I live in Barking in East London, it's shaping up to be Reform versus Green. And obviously, may the best party win. In terms of policies, a lot of the policies that you've outlined there are actually not so much Zack's policies as Green Party policies. These aren't just things he's pulled out of his head. These are things which the Green Party have had expert committees working on for many years, of which I'm a member of, for instance, the Habitats working group that decides nature policy. So the drugs policy, many people have worked on that for many years. It then goes through conference and gets voted on by our members. That is a Green Party policy. It is interesting that Reform, our main opposition, has none of that democracy. One person gets to decide, really, what Reform's policies are, and that's Nigel Farage. Do you think it's better for the main opposition party in this country to have its policies democratically voted on by its members, or just pulled out of the head of one man who controls the party?
Paul, 10% in front of them in the polls, that says it all.
I'll put this to you. That may be fair. However, there is a slight contradiction. There used to be a Women for Greens. That's disappeared since Palanski became leader. Why is that?
Sorry?
Why has the Women's for Greens group disappeared since Zack Polanski became leader? Well, many of them booted out in party conference. It's not very democratic, is it?
Actually, I went and spoke to them outside our conference.
Outside your conference? Yeah. It's not very democratic. Well, you can't claim to be democratic on one hand, not like what someone says on the other hand about your conference.
If I, for instance, went in to try to be a Reform member and went to their conference and actually I disagree with the main Reform policy, they would kick me out, as they have with Rupert Lowe, of course, and various other members who disagree with.
But they were party members. That's the difference.
Yeah,
right?
The point is that that is the trans policy has not changed. The Green Party has always been trans inclusive. You can argue against it. I'm happy to have that discussion. But again, it was democratically voted on by our members, and Zack upholds that policy as he has to as our leader.
Paul Richards.
I think my main beef is that people may consider voting for Green or even joining the Greens because they're concerned about the environment, but it's the other issues that go alongside that. Now, for a start off, nobody's mentioned the anti-Semitism, but the Green Party is now chock full of the anti-Semites that got booted out of the Labour Party 3 years ago, and I've seen no evidence of them tackling that in the same way that we did. Second of all, as Adam has said, the withdrawal from NATO, I think, is genuinely dangerous policy. And if you were to actually ask people, do you want us to be defenceless? Do you want us to pull out of that Western alliance at this most dangerous and perilous of times? They would say no. And yet that is Green Party policy. And
you do align on some things, Paul. I mean, puberty blockers, your party is just, your health secretary, Wes Streeting, is just given the go-ahead for children to be tested on. So you do have some alignment with them, don't you?
Well, I think there's a difference between a very limited test to see whether there is any medical evidence for it.
I don't think there's any limit.
Well, let's see what the test does.
I don't think you should experimental jihad. I completely agree with that.
And then the third element is this legalisation of crack and heroin, which I think you can have a reasonable debate about Class C drugs, perhaps, and look at other models. But the idea of flooding the streets with legal crack and heroin, I've got kids. I don't want them buying crack and heroin.
No one does.
Anna?
Yeah. Well, I'm extremely relieved that he's given up on the idea that he can enlarge women's breasts with his mind. That is, we can certainly take him seriously now, can't we? I mean, this guy is, I'm sorry, Paul, but I actually view this guy, I do view him as a joke. I think this is student politics dressed up as a national programme. And I'll tell you why. Because the most important issue facing our country at the moment is the economy. And whenever he's questioned on the economy, he does not know the basic numbers. He was asked, do you know the size of the national debt? He didn't know that. He doesn't know the size of the deficit. He doesn't even know the size of the UK economy. And I'm afraid that has got to be number one. Number two, on defence, he is incredibly weak on defence. This is not the time for us to have anyone playing around in politics who's weak on defence. That is student politics. On the rent controls, you saw him boasting about that this morning. He was asked, name one country, just one, where rent controls, one of your flagship policies, has worked. He couldn't even name a single one. So I'm sorry, he just isn't serious. But I tell you what, he wouldn't be doing as well, Paul, if the Labour Party weren't doing as badly.
Correct.
I put this partly at Keir Starmer's door. He's tanking the economy. He's giving up our national sovereignty. He's kowtowing to China. And the result of that is you get these loons like Zack Polanski coming forward.
All right,
so
Paul Powell.
There's quite a lot to respond to. There's only 3 people against it, but I'll do my best. Firstly,
4 including Alex.
Indeed. So on the economy point, that he's really nailed something that I think a lot of British people actually have felt, which is that the entire system is stacked against them, and it is run in the interests of the wealthy, of the millionaires and the billionaires, rather than the ordinary people. He has identified that. And you cannot say that hasn't struck a chord. That is why he's rising in the opinion polls higher than any Green Party leader has before.
I agree with that, Paul, but it's the solutions he's coming up with which are completely fantasy student politics.
And you mentioned about the environment, and obviously as from Labour, one thing he has identified, for instance, is a direct connection between one of the biggest environmental issues we face, sewage in our rivers, and economics. That the Conservatives and Labour are both in favour of water privatisation, which has looted billions of pounds from the water sector. And as a result, right now, on the river I live on in East London, there is billions of litres a year of sewage illegally going into the rivers, and no one does anything about it. And he has said that is linked to the fact that other people, that is linked to other economic issues.
All right.
And can I just go on
very briefly? Go on, very briefly.
The defence point is very interesting. We're talking about how NATO is sacred and all this kind of thing. A few weeks after, it looked like, for a moment, our main NATO ally, America, was going to invade another NATO member. And actually, I think Zack called it early and called it right, that actually a defensive alliance which can be turned around at the whim of a madman like Donald Trump is not necessarily an alliance we want to be in.
Would you give up our nukes?
Sorry?
Would you give up our nukes as the Green Party? You're in power tomorrow, would you give up our nukes?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
I wouldn't unilaterally, no, but I don't think that's Green Party policy. It's to negotiate and try and bring about a nuclear-free world, which has been the policy of many.
Paul, Zack has previously been against nuclear defence.
support.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't think that's his policy now.
Do you think he would press the nuclear button if we was getting attacked? Would Zack Polanski press the nuclear button? Yes or no?
I've no idea, but it's not exactly.
Well, that's not good enough. He's Prime Minister. Would he press the nuclear button? Yes or no?
Well, he's not Prime Minister. Thank goodness.
No, but would he?
This is what passes for defence discussion, a sort of willy waving.
No,
would you annihilate the lives of millions of people?
Russia
yes
is
or
sending
no?
one over. Does he press it? Yes or no?
Would you?
Yes.
It's a stupid
yes
question,
or no?
isn't it? It's a stupid question.
Does he retaliate? Yes or no?
Should we leave NATO if Donald Trump invaded Greenland? Yes or no?
I haven't.
Yes or no?
That.
Yes or no?
No, we shouldn't.
We'd stay in NATO when one of the main NATO members is invading another.
Russia threatens us. They're sending over a nuke. Our Prime Minister is Zack Polanski. Does he press the button? Yes or no to defend us?
I'm not in Zack's mind.
But do you not think,
as a Green Party member, would you support? Support it?
Would I support annihilating millions of people?
Defending ourselves. Yes or no?
Defending ourselves.
Yes. If somebody's sending over a nuclear weapon and we've got the chance to send ours off in a retaliation to stop further strikes, would the Green Party do it?
It wouldn't stop further strikes. The whole point about nuclear deterrence.
You've just shown the whole audience what happens if the Green Party get in. We are absolutely
so all of Britain's cities lie as a nuclear wasteland, and millions of people are dead. Would you retaliate by killing millions more Russians? It's a stupid question, isn't it?
Right, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Paul Powell, thank you very much for coming and giving a robust debate. It's really, I know it's a bit of a difficult audience for you here tonight, but thank you, appreciate it nonetheless.